Discovery at Creek, February of '79, Montana Territory. The kind of cold that killed horses standing up. I found her half buried in the snowdrift by my creek, blue-lipped, frost thick as spiderweb on her eyelashes. Her deerskin dress torn open across the chest, skin exposed to the killing cold. When I pressed 2 fingers to her throat, nothing. Waited. Still nothing. Then a pulse, faint as mothwing. I carried her home, tended the wounds, wrapped her in every blanket I owned, and sat up all night watching her breathe, afraid each one might be the last. 48 hours later, I woke to weight on my chest. She was straddling me, hands pressed to my shoulders, terror in her dark eyes. Not what you're thinking. If you put me outside, she whispered, I die. That's when I saw the chalk marks on the floor, messages she'd written while I slept. They follow, 5 men, worth $500. Before I could answer, riders appeared on the ridge. The trapline had been empty for 3 days. Bad sign. Animals knew something humans didn't. Storm coming, the kind that buried cabins. I was turning back when I saw the shape against white. Thought it was deadfall at first. A log rolled down from the ridge. Then I saw hair, black and frozen stiff as wire. She lay face down in the drift. One arm stretched forward like she'd been reaching for something. The wind had started to cover her. Another hour and she'd have been invisible. I crouched. My knees cracked in the cold. The sound echoed off the empty timber. Her dress was deer hide, torn across the bodice, seams split wide. One breast exposed to the February air, skin mottled purple-white. I looked away, forced my eyes to her neck, pressed 2 fingers below her jaw. Nothing. I counted to 10, the wind cutting my face. Still nothing. Started to pull my hand back. That's when I felt it. Pulse. Faint as a bird's heartbeat under your palm. Blood on the snow behind her. Not much, but enough to track. Someone had chased her here. Recently. The sky was pressing down. Color of old iron. 2 hours of light. Maybe less. Storm building. I could taste metal on the wind. Feel pressure in my skull. Carrying her meant abandoning 3 traps. Maybe losing my way back if the snow started early. Leaving her meant watching another woman die. 6 years I'd lived alone. 6 years since I buried Marjorie and the baby under the cottonwood. Since I'd built this cabin with my own hands just to have something to do besides remember. 6 years of routine and silence keeping me stitched together. I lifted her. She was heavier than she looked, solid through the middle, despite the starving. Her head lolled against my chest, frost breaking off her lashes. The curves of her body pressed into me as I adjusted her weight. My horse didn't like it. Stamped and snorted, ears flat. Easy, I muttered, more to myself than him. I laid her across the saddle, tied her steady with lead rope. Her arm dangled, swinging with each step. I watched to make sure she was still limp, still breathing. Frozen solid meant dead, limp meant maybe. The ride back stretched. Minutes felt like hours. Cold burned through my coat, through wool, down to bone. I kept one hand on her shoulder, checking. Each time I felt the faint rise and fall of her ribs, something in my chest loosened. Not much, just enough. The blood trail followed us. Drops in the snow, leading back toward the mountain pass, leading straight to my door. First night vigil. Inside, I laid her on the bed. My bed, only bed. The cabin smelled like old smoke and loneliness. I stoked the fire until heat filled the room, until sweat soaked my shirt. Hung my coat by the door, found the tin basin, set water to boil. The kettle hissed and spat. Her wounds were worse up close. Deep gash down her left arm, edges jagged like stone or dull blade. Rope burns circling both wrists, raw and weeping. Feet torn to meat, toenails black. I cleaned the blood. She jerked when water touched skin, a broken sound escaping her throat. Easy, I said. Same word I'd used on the horse. Didn't know what else to say. Wrapped her arm tight with strips torn from an old shirt. Tucked the quilt high, covering what the dress couldn't. Tried not to look at the exposed skin, the way her ribs showed through, the curve of hip. Tried, and mostly failed. My hands shook after, not from cold, from memory. 6 years ago, different woman, same bed, same helplessness. Marjorie bleeding out, the midwife shaking her head, baby already gone. Some things you can't fix, Silas, she'd said. Some things God decides. I'd sat just like this, holding Marjorie's hand, watching her breath get shallow, felt it go slack in my grip, but this woman's breath was getting stronger, color returning to her cheeks, slight but real. Her chest rose and fell in steady rhythm. I'd done something right this time. I pulled the chair close, laid the rifle across my knees. The widow's lamp burned on the shelf, the one Marjorie made from tin and rawhide. Its light caught the frost already forming on the inside of the windows, patterns like feathers. Hours passed. Wind pressed the walls. The timbers creaked, talking to themselves. I watched her face in the firelight, watched for any change. My eyes burned, but I didn't close them. Near dawn, her eyes opened, dark, sharp, fixed on me with sudden clarity that made my breath catch. Her lips moved, voice like gravel scraping wood. Red clouds, Nice, Worth, 500. Then her eyes rolled back. She went under again, but still breathing, still alive. I sat back, understanding settling like stone in my gut. $500. That's why she'd been running. That's why someone had chased her into killing cold. That's why they'd come here looking. Morning desperation, I woke to weight on my chest. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. Then, I felt her knees pressing into the mattress on either side of my ribs, her hands planted firm on my shoulders. Her hair hung loose, shadowing her face. The torn dress gaped open, showing skin I had no business seeing. My heart kicked, started to sit up. Then I saw her eyes. Terror. Pure animal terror. "If you put me outside," she said, halting English, each word costing her, "I die." Not seduction, survival. She thought the only currency she had was her body, thought that's what men required for shelter. My throat closed. Couldn't speak for a moment, just stared at her, at the way she trembled despite the fire's heat, at the desperate set of her jaw. "I don't put people out," I managed, voice rough from sleep. She searched my face. Didn't believe me. Her hands shook against my chest. I could feel her ribs through the thin fabric. Every breath she took. Slow, so she could see it coming. I set my hands on her forearms, eased her back onto the bed, pulled the quilt up, tucking it firm around her shoulders. "You're safe here. No one's going to touch you." She stared at me. Something broke behind her eyes. Not crying, past that, but her face crumpled. She curled into the quilt, making herself small. I stood, turned to the stove, gave her privacy, started coffee with hands that wanted to shake. The ground smelled like earth and char. That's when I saw it. Chalk marks on the floorboards. She'd been writing while I slept. The words, uneven but clear, scratched deep into the wood grain. "They follow. 5 men, worth $500. Below that, sorry, they hurt you too." I crouched, reading it twice. She thought bringing danger to me meant she owed herself, thought that's how debts got paid. I looked back at her. She watched from the bed, eyes wide, waiting for anger. "Nobody's hurting anybody," I said. "Not you, not me. That's done." She pulled the quilt tighter, didn't speak, but something in her shoulders loosened, just a fraction. The coffee boiled over, the smell filled the cabin, bitter and strong. Town reality check. I left her with the rifle, showed her how to bar the door from inside, heavy plank that fit into iron brackets. "Don't open for anyone but me," I said. "Anyone." She nodded, fingers white on the rifle stock. The ride to town took longer than usual. Snow had drifted across the road, my horse chest deep in places. 8 miles felt like 20. Sky the color of old pewter, more snow coming. Gray Bluff sat hunched against the mountains. Woodsmoke town, 20 buildings, maybe 30 souls. People who kept their heads down and their business private. Elwood's Mercantile smelled like salt pork and kerosene. The bell over the door jangled when I entered. He looked up from his ledger, looked back down just as quick. Wrong sign. "Need flour, salt, ammunition," I said. "Fresh out of ammunition." His voice flat, eyes still on the page. "Elwood." He set down his pen, met my eyes finally. "Silas, there's a bounty. Federal marshal came through yesterday, posted papers." He reached under the counter, pulled out a folded sheet, pushed it toward me. I read it. "Apache woman, approximately 23 years of age, wanted for escape from lawful custody. $500, no questions asked about condition. Signed by Marshal Oswin Tate, Federal Territory Court." "You hear about anyone like that?" Elwood asked. I kept my face stone. "Nope." "Good." He pulled a flour sack from under the counter, set it on the wood with a heavy thud, heavier than flour should be. "Because harboring fugitives is a federal offense, hanging offense." He leaned in, voice dropping. "And folks around here got long memories about Apache trouble. 3 years back, Red Cloud's band hit the Jacobson Ranch, killed 2 men, burned the barn. This woman didn't kill anyone." His eyes sharpened. "Didn't say you knew her." Silence stretched. The store's clock ticked loud. "Whatever you're thinking," Elwood said finally, "don't. You can't win against federal law. You can't win against bounty hunters. All you can do is die trying." He pushed the flour sack closer. "Take this, go home. Forget what you saw." I paid, left without the ammunition I'd asked for. The ride back felt longer still. Snow starting to fall, thick and heavy. By the time I crested the ridge and saw my cabin, visibility was down to 50 yards. That's when I saw them. Tracks, boot prints, 5 distinct sets circling the structure. Fresh, maybe an hour old, edges still sharp. They'd stopped at each window, tested the door. One set led to the woodpile, like someone had climbed up to check the roof. 4 sets continued north toward the tree line. The 5th stayed. Recent impression near a big pine. Good sight line to my front door. I urged the horse forward, pulse hammering in my ears. The cabin door was still barred from inside. I knocked twice, paused, knocked once more. Signal we'd agreed on. The bar scraped. Door cracked 6 inches. Her face appeared, pale. The rifle aimed past me at the trees. "They came," she whispered. "I know." I slipped inside, barred the door again, set down the flour sack. It made a heavier sound than it should. "How many did you see?" "4. One stayed. At tree. Watch." I looked through the gap in the shutters. Sure enough, a dark figure barely visible against the snow, standing still, patient, professional. The flour sack sat between us. Something was wrong with its weight. Outside, the watcher didn't move, just stood there in the falling snow, waiting. Chalk communication deepens. She couldn't speak much, throat too raw from the cold, voice breaking after 3 words, so she used the chalk. I'd found a box of it in Marjorie's old trunk, left over from when she taught the neighbor kids their letters. Nashoda sat cross-legged by the fire, the stick of chalk moving across the floorboards while I cleaned my rifle. Not words this time. Pictures. First, a woman with marks on her arms, symbols I didn't recognize, circles and lines, careful and precise. She pointed to herself, to the drawing. "Medicine woman?" I asked. She nodded, sharp and certain. Second drawing, men with ropes, women with bound hands. She drew quick, angry lines. Her chalk pressed so hard it squeaked against the wood. Third, herself with lines radiating from her mouth toward the bound women, speaking. Then other hands scratching out the symbols on her arms. Exile marks. "You spoke against them," so I said. She nodded. "Your own people cast you out." Another nod. She wrote beneath the drawings in careful letters. "Elders sold us. I told truth. Cursed." The words sat heavy between us. The fire popped, sending sparks up the chimney. I set down the rifle. "You're not cursed." She looked at me like I'd spoken a foreign tongue, pointed to herself, to the torn dress, to the scars on her wrists, all the evidence she needed. "You did right," I said. "They did wrong. That's not curse, that's exile. Different thing." Her hand paused, mid-chalk. She studied my face, searching for the lie she expected. Found none. Something shifted in her posture, spine straightening, shoulders pulling back. She drew again. A bird, small and careful, wings folded, lying on its side, dead or frozen, then the same bird with wings spread wide, flying. She pointed to herself, to the frozen bird, back to herself. I understood. "You will," I said. For the first time, she almost smiled. Just the corner of her mouth, gone as quick as it came. Then her face went sharp. She drew fast, a small figure, child-sized, alone in a field of white. Added symbols around it, cold marks, danger signs. She looked at me, urgent. Then her palm swept across the drawing, erasing it, frantic. "What child?" I asked. She shook her head, kept erasing until the floorboard showed bare wood again. Wouldn't meet my eyes. I didn't push, but I filed it away. There was a child out there somewhere, and she knew about it. The fire crackled. Outside, the wind picked up. The watcher was still out there. I could feel him like an itch between my shoulder blades. She wrote one more thing before the light faded. "Thank you." Simple words, but her hand shook writing them. Elwood's secret delivery. The knock came at dusk. 3 raps, pause, 2 more. Not our signal. I motioned Nashoda behind the far wall, the corner where she'd be out of sight if the door opened. She moved silent, taking the rifle. I grabbed my own, cracked the door 6 inches. Elwood stood in the snow, no horse, carrying the flour sack and a smaller bundle. His breath clouded heavy in the cold air. "Thought you might need—" "Go home, Elwood." "Silas, just listen." I started to close the door. He jammed his boot in the gap. "My Beatrice is 9 years old. If she was out there alone, I'd pray someone like you found her." His voice cracked. "Let me help." I looked at him for a long moment. Snow gathering on his shoulders, ice in his beard. His eyes were desperate and honest. I stepped back. He hurried inside, glancing at the shuttered windows like someone might be watching, set the sack down with a heavy thud that rattled the floorboards. "Town thinks I'm delivering charity to old widow Hess," he said. "Storm's got the road blocked anyway. No one'll check." He unwrapped the smaller bundle. Dried venison, coffee, a wool blanket. Real wool, not the thin stuff. Nashota emerged from behind the wall. Elwood stiffened when he saw her, took in the bandaged arm, the too large shirt she wore over the torn dress, the way she held herself ready to bolt. He swallowed hard. "Ma'am," he said. Awkward but respectful. She watched him, silent and wary. "The flower's for you," he said to me. "Extra weight's under the grain. Don't open it till I'm gone." His hand shook as he set down the venison. "And Silas, there's talk about what you might be hiding." "What kind of talk?" "The kind that gets men hanged." He turned for the door, paused with his hand on the latch. "Marshall arrives tomorrow. Federal man, name of Oswin Tate. Word is he's got personal reasons for wanting Apache runaways." "What kind of personal?" "His daughter ran off with a native man 5 years back. He disowned her publicly. Folks say he's been hunting ever since, trying to erase the shame." Elwood met my eyes. "He won't give you fair hearing. He'll take her first, ask questions never." The wind rattled the shutters. Snow hissed against the walls. "One more thing," Elwood said. "Those men watching your place? They're not marshals, they're bounty hunters. Clyde Mercer's crew. They don't follow rules." He opened the door. Cold air rushed in. "God be with you both." After he left, I opened the flour sack. Under 6 inches of grain, 2 boxes of ammunition, a revolver with a clean action, and a note in Elwood's shaky hand. "Can't let a man face winter unarmed. Whatever comes, you didn't get this from me." Nashota touched my shoulder, pointed at the ammunition, then at herself, raised an eyebrow, a question. "Tomorrow," I said. "Tonight, we rest while we can." She nodded, but neither of us believed it. Outside, wolves began to howl, long and mournful. The sound carried across the frozen valley like a warning. Marshal Oswin Tate arrived mid-morning, 3 deputies behind him, rifles slung but hands near them. I watched through the shutter gap as they dismounted, their horses stamping and blowing steam. Oswin was tall, gray-bearded, eyes like winter sky, colorless and hard. He moved like a man who'd worn authority so long it had become his spine. His knock was official, loud, demanding. "Silas Colburn, federal matter. Open this door." I cracked it 6 inches, rifle visible in my hands. "Marshal, we're here for the Apache woman. Bounty hunters filed legal claim. Territory court issued warrant." His eyes flicked past me, searching the cabin's dim interior. "She comes with us. You face no charges. No woman here. Don't insult me, Colburn." His voice went flat. "We tracked her blood trail from the pass. We know she's inside." Behind me, Nashota stood frozen near the stove. The chalk was in her hand, the floorboards covered with new messages. I'd read them at dawn. "Let me go. Save yourself." I'd ignored them, written one word beneath, "No." "You got a warrant for searching my property?" I asked. Oswin's jaw worked, muscle jumping beneath his beard. "I'm offering you a choice. Hand her over peaceful, walk away clean, or make me take other options." "Options like burning a man out of his home?" "Options like charging you with harboring a fugitive, resisting federal authority, accessory to escape." He leaned closer. The smell of tobacco came off him, stale and sharp. "You'll hang, Colburn. And for what? A squaw who's legally bound to her captors." The word hit like a slap. I felt Nashota flinch behind me. "She's a person," I said, voice low and tight. "Not property. Law says different." Oswin leaned in so close I could see the broken veins in his nose. His voice dropped so the deputies couldn't hear. 5 years ago, my daughter chose one of them over her own blood. Ran off, shamed our name, made me a mockery. His eyes burned. "I spent every day since trying to restore what she destroyed. I know what these people do. They seduce, they corrupt, they take what doesn't belong to them. She didn't seduce anyone. She was dying in the snow. Then she dies in federal custody. Either way, she leaves." He straightened, tugged his coat smooth. "You have until dawn to hand her over. After that, we come in. And if she's harmed in the process," he smiled without warmth, "well, you resisted." He mounted, rode 20 yards before stopping. His voice carried back across the snow. "My daughter made me weak once, Colburn. Cost me everything I built. Won't happen again." They made camp just past the tree line, within sight, within rifle range. I could see them moving, setting up tents, building a fire, settling in. I barred the door and turned. Nashota had written more, huge letters across every inch of floor. "Go. I run. They chase. You live." I knelt, took the chalk from her shaking hand, wrote beneath in letters just as large, "No." She grabbed my wrist. Her grip was strong despite everything. "Why?" The word tore out of her damaged throat. "You not know me. Don't need to. You die for nothing. You're not nothing." I held her gaze. "And I'm not letting you go. That's done." Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. She pulled her hand back like I'd burned her. She waited until midnight. I'd banked the fire low, checked the rifle for the 10th time. Sat in my chair, staring at the frost patterns on the window, the same patterns Marjorie used to trace with her finger, saying they looked like angel wings. The scrape of the bar lifting jerked me alert. Nashada was at the door, dressed in the torn deerskin again, Elwood's blanket wrapped around her shoulders, moving silent as snow falling. "Don't." My voice stopped her. She turned, eyes glistening in the low firelight. "You die? For me?" Each word cost her, her throat still raw. "No, I go. You'll freeze before you make half a mile. Better than you, hang." She lifted the bar another inch. Cold air rushed in, stealing the warmth. I crossed the room in 3 strides, slammed my hand against the door. "I said no." "Why?" She wheeled on me, voice breaking. "You not know me. I nothing. Why you—" She hit my chest with her fist, weak but furious. "Why you die for nothing? You're not nothing." "I am." Her voice cracked completely. "Cursed. Cast out. Men sell me like... She couldn't find the word, collapsed against the door, shoulders shaking. I stood there, chest heaving. The words came out before I could stop them. 6 years ago, my wife bled out in that bed. I pointed. Her and my baby. I sat right there and watched them die because I couldn't... My voice broke. Couldn't do a goddamn thing. Midwife said it was God's will. I said God could go to hell. Nashota raised her head. Tears streaked her face. I've spent 6 years alone because I couldn't save them. Because I was useless when it mattered. I grabbed her shoulders, gentle but firm. You think I'm going to let you walk out that door and freeze so I can live with that again? You think I can bury another woman I could have saved? You not save me. You delay. Maybe. I pulled her close, her head against my chest, her whole body shaking. But I'm delaying till spring if I have to. You stay. We both stay. That's the end of it. For a long time, we stood there, the fire crackling, the wind howling, the widow's lamp casting shadows that danced across the chalk-covered floor. Then we heard it, faint, distant, almost lost in the storm starting outside. A child's cry. Nashada went rigid, pulled back, eyes wide with terror I hadn't seen before. "The child," I said. "The one you drew." She grabbed the chalk, wrote frantically, letters shaking. "Beatrice, Elwood daughter, lost, storm. I hear yesterday, if tell you go, they take you." Jesus Christ. I grabbed my coat off the peg. "How far?" She wrote, "Half mile, maybe dead now." I looked at the marshal's campfire through the window, looked at Nashada, looked at the door, no choice. There'd never been one. "Get dressed warm," I said. "We're both going." Her eyes went wide. "They see..." "Don't care what they see." I pulled on my gloves. "A child's dying. That's all that matters." She stared at me for one more second. Then she grabbed the blanket and tied it tight. Outside, the child's cry came again, weaker this time. We had minutes, not hours. I tied a rope between us, her waist to mine. 15 feet of hemp, only thing that would keep us connected if the whiteout hit. "Stay close," I shouted over the wind. "You fall, I pull you up." She nodded, determined. Her face was already going numb, lips pressed tight. We stepped into the storm. The cold was murderous. Wind drove snow horizontal, stinging any exposed skin, turning each breath into knives in the lungs. I followed Nashada. She knew the direction, some instinct I didn't have. We stumbled through drifts thigh-deep, pushed against wind that wanted to shove us back toward the cabin. 10 minutes in, I couldn't see the cabin behind us. The world was white and howling. 20 minutes, I couldn't feel my feet inside my boots. The rope went taut. Nashota had stopped. She pointed down, a small shape barely visible against white, curled against a fallen log, covered in snow like a burial mound. I dug fast, hands burning even through gloves, found fabric first, blue wool, then a face. Beatrice Parrish, 9 years old, lips blue going black, eyes closed, not moving. Nashota dropped to her knees beside me, pressed her ear to the girl's chest. The wind screamed around us. She looked up at me, nodded once. Alive. Barely. She unwrapped the blanket from her own shoulders, the good wool one Elwood had brought, and wound it around Beatrice. Then she opened her deerskin dress at the front and pulled the child inside against her bare skin. Old medicine, shock treatment, warmth transfer. The cold hit her immediately. I saw her body jerk, saw her teeth start to chatter. "We go," she said through chattering teeth. "Fast." I lifted them both, woman and child together, their combined weight making my back scream. Turned back the way we'd come. The rope helped. I followed it hand over hand when the wind erased everything else. We passed within 30 yards of the deputy's camp. I saw one of them stand up from the fire, peer into the storm, saw him recognize shapes moving, a man carrying 2 people through the blizzard. His hand went to his rifle. But he didn't shoot, didn't call out, just watched as we struggled past, breath clouding, stumbling through snow that wanted to swallow us. Maybe he saw what it was. Maybe he had a daughter too. The cabin appeared like a miracle. I kicked the door, couldn't reach the latch with both arms full. It opened. Someone inside. My mind went blank with cold, couldn't process. Elwood. He must have come looking when Beatrice didn't come home. His face went white when he saw what I carried. Oh God, B. Inside we laid Beatrice by the fire. Nashota wouldn't release her, kept the child pressed to her skin, rubbing her arms and legs with shaking hands, coaxing circulation back. I threw logs on the fire until it roared, boiled water, made tea with the last of the sugar Elwood had brought. "I didn't know she'd followed me," Elwood said. His voice broke. "I came to warn you the marshal was moving at dawn. Turned around and she was gone." He choked on the words. Nashota hummed something low, a song without words. Her hands never stopped moving on Beatrice's cold limbs. It took an hour, the longest hour I'd ever lived. Then Beatrice's eyes fluttered open, unfocused at first, then landing on Nashota's face above her. Dark skin, copper-streaked hair, loose and wild. The girl smiled. "You're warm," she whispered. Nashota's face crumpled. She held Beatrice tighter, rocking slightly. "Papa?" Beatrice said. "I'm here, baby. I'm here." Elwood crossed the room, fell to his knees beside them. His hands shook as he touched his daughter's face. "Oh God, B, I got lost," Beatrice said. Her voice was small but steady. "It got dark so fast. I was so cold, Papa. But the Indian lady found me. She gave me her coat, even though she was cold too." Elwood looked at Nashota over his daughter's head. Tears streaked his face, freezing in his beard. You saved." Nashota looked away, uncomfortable with gratitude. Her whole body still shivered from the cold she'd given away. I draped another blanket around her shoulders. She didn't acknowledge it, just kept holding the child. "She went into the storm when she didn't have to," I said. "Gave up her own warmth. Your daughter's alive because of her." Elwood set Beatrice down gently on the bed, stood, approached Nashota like she was something holy. She tensed, uncertain. He held out his hand, formal, trembling. "Thank you," he said. His voice broke on the words. "I owe you everything." She took his hand, awkward, her fingers still white from cold, nodded once. Beatrice tugged her father's sleeve. "Papa, why are those men outside watching our house? Are they bad men?" The room went still. Elwood's face hardened. He looked at me. "The marshal?" "Till dawn, then they come in." He looked at his daughter, at Nashota wrapped in blankets, but still shivering, then back at me. Something changed in his eyes, soft merchant becoming something harder. "Not if the whole town has something to say about it." He picked up Beatrice, wrapped her tight, stopped at the door. "I'll be back before dawn, with witnesses." His jaw set. "She saved my daughter's life. That means something." After they left, I stoked the fire higher. Nashota sat close to it, hands stretched toward the heat. Her lips were still blue. "You could have died out there," I said. She looked at me. "Child, more important. You're important too." She shook her head, pointed to herself, to the door, to the marshal's fire visible through the window. Trouble. Child. Innocent. You're both innocent." I sat beside her. "And you're both staying alive. Understand?" She studied my face for a long moment. Then she leaned against me, exhausted. Her breathing slowed, evened out. Outside, the storm began to ease. The first gray light of dawn touched the horizon. The marshal's deadline was coming. By mid-morning, 12 people stood in my yard. Elwood had spread the word fast. The Apache woman saved his daughter, now he was calling the debt. Marshal Oswin stood on my porch, face carved from stone. Behind him, his 3 deputies looked uncertain. In front of him, townspeople I barely knew. Widow Hess with her cane, Old Man Garrett, the Johnsons with their 3 boys, people I'd ignored for 6 years standing in the snow. "This doesn't change the law," Oswin said. "Doesn't change what's right either," Elwood shot back. Beatrice stood beside him, wrapped in blankets, watching everything. "That woman risked her life for a white child. She's got more Christian charity than half this town. She's still wanted by federal warrant, then maybe the warrant's wrong." A murmur of agreement rippled through the crowd. I saw heads nodding. Widow Hess thumped her cane. Oswin's jaw worked. "Law isn't subject to popular vote." "No," said a new voice, "but contracts are." The crowd parted. A man pushed through, mid-40s, well-dressed despite the cold, boots polished to a shine. He carried a leather case. His face was smooth, clean-shaven, eyes cold as January ice. "Clyde Mercer," he said, smiled like he was selling something. "I represent the lawful owners of the fugitive." He nodded to Oswin. "Marshal." "This is a federal matter, Mr. Mercer. With all respect, it's a property matter. Territorial court gave us recovery rights." He opened the case with a brass snap, produced papers. The woman called Nashota, approximately 23 years of age, was purchased legally from Chiricahua intermediaries for $400 plus trade goods. When she escaped, she voided her contract. "We're simply recovering our investment." The word "purchased" cracked across the yard like a whip. Several people gasped. Elwood went red. "You can't own a person." "I own a contract," Clyde said smoothly. His smile never wavered. "Signed by her tribal representative. Territory law recognizes such agreements. She's merchandise with a receipt, Mr. Parrish." "That's slavery. That's commerce. Different thing." He looked at me. His eyes were dead. "Mr. Colburn, I understand you've developed sympathies. Natural for a lonely man. I'm prepared to offer you $200 for your trouble if you release her now. Otherwise, federal charges stand." I stepped off the porch. Snow crunched under my boots. "She's not for sale. She was already sold. You're just the last stop on her journey." His smile hardened. "I've got 12 more women under contract. This one's special. Tried to warn the others. Caused significant losses. The people who bought her aren't patient men." My stomach turned. "What people?" "That's proprietary business information." He tipped his hat to Oswin. "Marshal, I trust you'll uphold territory law." Oswin looked at the crowd, at Elwood, at Beatrice staring up at him with wide eyes. Something flickered across his face. Doubt, maybe, or shame, but the stone mask returned. "Law is law," he said. "Stand aside, Colburn." "Wait," the voice came from behind the crowd. People turned. A woman pushed forward. Native features, maybe 25, wearing a white woman's dress but with beadwork at the collar. Traditional patterns mixed with new cloth. She moved with purpose, head high, stopped 5 feet from Oswin. The marshal went white as the snow. "Kate, Kimimila," she corrected. Her voice was steady, strong. "I took my husband's people's name, as you took their shame for your own. You have no place here? I have every place." She gestured to my cabin, to where Nashota watched through the window. "You cast me out for loving a good man. You said I betrayed my blood, shamed our family name." Her voice cracked. "She spoke truth against men who hurt women. Her people cast her out for it. Tell me, Father, what's the difference between her exile and mine?" "That's not... She's a fugitive. I was a daughter." Tears streaked her face now. "I loved you. I begged you to meet him, to see he was kind and good. You called me whore, told me to die with the savages." Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried. 5 years. 5 years I've lived 20 miles from here, and you never came. Never asked if I was alive, if I was safe, if I was happy." The crowd was dead silent. Even Clyde had stopped smiling. "But you'll hunt strangers with federal warrants?" Kimimela continued. "You'll drag women back to men who bought them like cattle?" "I had to uphold," Oswin started. "You had to uphold nothing. You chose law over love because love hurt your pride." She turned to the crowd. "This woman saved a child last night. A white child. In a storm that could have killed her. She did what any Christian would do, what any good person would do." She looked back at her father. And now you'll drag her back to men who will use her and sell her and break her? Is that the law you uphold? Oswin stood frozen, every line in his face carved deep. His hand shook at his side. She spoke truth, and they cast her out, Kimamela said softly. I spoke love, and you did the same. We're the same, father. We're both the women you abandoned. Clyde cleared his throat. This is very touching, but contract law... Damn your contract. Elwood stepped forward. That woman's a hero. We're not handing her over to be sold like livestock. Then you're all accessories, Clyde said. His smooth mask cracked. Marshal, are you going to enforce the law or not? Oswin looked at his daughter, at the crowd, at little Beatrice watching with those wide, innocent eyes. His hand went to his sidearm. Hung there, dropped. I need to see the contract, he said slowly. Verify its authenticity. Could be forged. Marshal, I said I need to verify it. He looked at Clyde. Could take days, maybe until the pass opens. Hard to enforce federal warrants when you can't transport the prisoner. Clyde's face went hard. The smile died completely. You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. Oswin turned to me. Keep her inside, Colburn, for her safety, until this gets sorted. He walked away, shoulders bent like something heavy pressed on them. Kimamela watched him go, tears streaming, then she followed, calling after him. Father. He stopped, didn't turn around, but he waited. She caught up. They stood together in the snow, not touching, not speaking. Then his hand reached out, found hers. The crowd pretended not to watch as they walked away together. Clyde stood alone. He looked at me, at the cabin, at the townspeople who hadn't moved. This isn't over, he said. Smiled again, but it was all teeth. Contracts have value. Investments must be protected. He left, but I saw his men gathering at the tree line. 8 of them now, maybe more. The law had bent, but Clyde Mercer didn't answer to law. Clyde's men made camp a half-mile out. We watched their fires from the window, 4 separate blazes burning against the dark. Counting heads, 8 men minimum, maybe 10, professionals who knew how to wait. They'll come tonight, I said. Law won't stop them now. Nashota nodded. She'd loaded the revolver Elwood brought, checked it 3 times with steady hands, no shaking anymore. She'd crossed some line in the storm, saving Beatrice. Fear had burned out of her, left something harder. We ate cold venison. Couldn't risk stove smoke giving away. We were awake and ready. The meat was tough, tasted like salt and old blood. I chewed slow, watching the fires through the shutter gap. The widow's lamp burned low between us. Marjorie's lamp? Last of the oil? Maybe an hour left before it guttered out. Silas. Nashota's English had gotten stronger each day, still halting, still searching for words, but clear. If tomorrow I not live, don't. Listen. She touched my hand. Her fingers were warm now, the frostbite healing. I want, say, thank you, for see me. Person, not. She searched for the word, face tight with concentration. Not thing, my throat closed. You were always a person. Not before you, she smiled, sad and small. Before, I was cursed girl, medicine woman who fail. Apache sell me, white men buy me, I forget. I person. She squeezed my hand. You remember for me. I turned my hand over, laced my fingers through hers. Her palm was calloused from work, from the wood she'd helped me split, the garden plot she'd already started planning for spring. I lost my wife 6 years ago, I said. The words came easier than they ever had. Been dead inside since. Thought that's how it was supposed to be. Punishment for not saving her. I looked at our joined hands, hers dark against mine, both marked by labor. Then I found you half frozen by my creek, and for the first time since she died, I wanted to live. Wanted tomorrow to come. She leaned against me, her head fit just under my chin. We sat like that while the lamp burned lower, while the frost patterns on the window grew thicker, while the fires outside stayed steady and patient. The floorboards were covered with her chalk messages, layers of them now, some scrubbed out, some written over, some left permanent. A record of everything she couldn't say that first week. I could still read the faint words underneath. Sorry. They hurt you too. Let me go. And my answers? No. You stay. Family. Near midnight, she picked up the chalk one last time. I watched her write, the stick squeaking against wood. If I die, tell them I was free. The words sat there, stark and final. The lamp flickered. I read them twice, 3 times. Then I pulled her close and kissed her, gentle at first, testing. Her lips were chapped from the cold, tasted like salt and venison. She went still for a heartbeat, then responded. Her hands came up to my hair, fingers tangling. My arms wrapped around her waist, feeling the strength there, the curves, the warmth of her body through the shirt she wore, my shirt hanging loose on her frame. The kiss deepened. Desperation and hope twisted together. Her mouth opened under mine. I felt her heart hammering against my chest, or maybe that was my own. When we parted, she kept her forehead pressed to mine, eyes closed, breathing hard. "You good man, Silas Colburn," she whispered. "Just a man who got lucky." She shook her head. "No, you choose. Every day, you choose." She touched my face, palm warm against my cheek. That not luck, that love. The word hung between us, huge and fragile as the lamp flame guttering beside us. I wanted to say it back, wanted to tell her yes, it was love, had been since the moment I decided to carry her home instead of leaving her in the snow, but the words stuck. Outside, the wolves began to howl, long and mournful, the sound carrying across the frozen valley. And beneath their voices I heard it, the crack of a rifle being primed. Clyde's voice carried across the snow, magnified by the cold and stillness. "Colburn, let's be reasonable men." I cracked the shutter an inch. He stood 50 yards out, torch in hand, 7 men spread in a loose line behind him, all armed, rifles and pistols, the metal catching torchlight. They'd positioned themselves smart, covering angles, leaving no easy shots. "I'm offering you life," he called. His voice was smooth, reasonable, like we were discussing cattle prices. "Just hand her over. You walk away. Town's none the wiser. Nobody else has to die." "She's not cargo," I shouted back. "She's inventory with a buyer waiting. He's across the New Mexico line right now, getting impatient, paid good money, very good money." He shifted the torch, and I saw his smile, even at this distance. "Here's the thing about impatient buyers, Colburn. They pay for damages. So whether she comes to me walking or bleeding, conscious or not, I still get my money. Your choice which way." Nashota stood beside me now, rifle raised and steady. "I not go," she called out. Her English rang clear and strong. "I stay. I free." Clyde laughed. The sound was wrong, too light, too easy. "Your property, honey. Property doesn't choose. Property does what it's told or property gets broken." He raised the torch higher. "Last chance, Colburn. For both of you." I aimed my rifle at his chest. "Come try." His smile faded. "So be it. Boys." The first shot came from the left. One of his men, too eager or too nervous. The bullet punched through the shutter, streaked across the cabin's dim interior, and hit the shelf. The widow's lamp exploded. Glass shattered. Oil splattered across wood, caught fire immediately. The flame spread for 3 seconds before I threw a blanket over it, smothered it out. But the lamp, Marjorie's lamp, the one she'd made with her own hands, the one I'd kept burning for 6 years, was gone. Pieces of tin and rawhide scattered across the floor. The symbol of my old life, destroyed. Darkness swallowed the room except for the low firelight from the stove. I returned fire, heard a scream, hit but not fatal. Nashota fired the revolver, the report deafening inside the cabin walls. Steady, controlled. She was learning fast. Then all hell opened up. Bullets thudded into wood, punched through shutters and explosions of splinters. One whined off the stove with a bell-tone ring. Another buried itself in the doorframe inches from my head. We dropped flat, crawled to different windows. I fired methodically. One shot move, one shot, conserving ammunition. Nashota did the same with the revolver, shooting only when she had clear targets. The attack lasted 5 minutes but felt like hours. Then it stopped. Sudden silence that was somehow worse than the gunfire. I peered through a gap in the shattered shutter. They'd pulled back to the trees, regrouping. Smoke drifted across the snow from where a torch had set fire to the woodshed. The small structure burned steady, orange light painting everything in hell colors. Clyde was shouting orders, his men arguing. I caught fragments. "Burn them out. Wait for dawn. Not worth dying for." That's when I saw her. Small shape in the trees beyond Clyde's position, watching. A child. Beatrice. She'd followed them here. Followed her father, who'd probably come with the townspeople. Hidden herself to watch. Witness to everything. "Silas," Nashota whispered, urgent. She'd seen the girl, too. If Beatrice was found by Clyde's men, if they realized she'd seen everything, heard everything. But the girl was smart. She pressed tight against a tree trunk. Invisible, unless you knew where to look. Her eyes met mine across the distance. She nodded once. "I saw you. I understand." Then melted back into the dark. Gone. "She heard," I said. "Everything Clyde said. About buying and selling. About damaged merchandise. Nashota's eyes widened. Witness. Witness, I agreed. One they can't discredit. Outside, Clyde had made his decision. Dawn, he shouted to his men. We wait for light, then burn them out. They'll come running or cook. Either way, we win. Boots crunched in snow as they moved back to their camp, but I could see two men staying closer, watching, making sure we didn't run. I turned to Nashota. The destroyed lamp lay between us, Marjorie's lamp in pieces, the old life broken, the new one under siege. We need to last till dawn, I said. Town knows now. Elwood knows. When they see smoke, they'll come. If we live, she said. We'll live. I reloaded the rifle. I didn't carry you out of the snow just to let you burn. She smiled, grim but real. Then we fight. We spent the remaining hours of night preparing, pushed furniture against the door, soaked blankets in the water barrel, hung them over the shutters, fire retardant, laid out every round of ammunition we had, 17 bullets for the rifle, 8 for the revolver, 25 shots total, against 8 men minimum. The math wasn't good, but we'd make it count. As the first gray light touched the horizon, Nashota wrote one more message on the floor beside the remains of the lamp. Marjorie would be proud. I read it, felt something crack open in my chest, nodded. Outside, I heard Clyde's men stirring. Heard the splash of kerosene being poured, smelled it on the cold air, sharp and sick-sweet. The final attack was coming. They came at dawn. Clyde had split his force smart. 3 men from the front, 4 circling to the back, 1 staying high on the ridge as lookout. Professional, military thinking. Through the shutter gap, I watched them position, saw the torches, smelled kerosene stronger now, mixed with pine smoke from their campfires. The cornice, I muttered. Nashota looked at me, questioning. Snow built up on the ridge above us. I pointed through the window at the white overhang barely visible in the gray light. Been unstable all winter. Old Trapper told me last fall, one good jolt and the whole face could come down. I met her eyes. Big enough noise might do it. She understood immediately. You want make noise? Biggest noise we got. I'd kept 2 sticks of dynamite since last summer, meant for clearing a beaver dam that was flooding my lower pasture. Kept them wrapped to dry in the root cellar, never thinking I'd use them like this. I unwrapped them now. The waxy paper crinkled. The sticks smelled like almonds and fear. Clyde's shout carried across the snow. Last chance, Colburn. Send her out and you live. I didn't answer, just lit the fuse on one stick, counted 3 Mississippi, threw it through the broken window. The blast was enormous. Snow geysered up 20 feet, the cabin shook, dishes rattling off the shelf. Men screamed, the 3 in front caught in the spray of ice and concussion. 1 went down, not moving, the other 2 stumbled back, disoriented. But that wasn't the important sound. The important sound came from above. A crack, sharp as a rifle shot, but deeper, resonating through the mountain's bones. Then another. Then a groan, like the earth itself waking angry. Down! I grabbed Nashota, dragged her behind the stove, the only solid protection. Covered her body with mine. The avalanche hit like God's fist. The roar drowned everything. Gunfire, screaming, thought. The cabin shuddered, walls flexing inward. Snow pounded the roof in waves, pouring through the broken windows in white waterfalls. For 30 seconds the world was chaos and thunder. Then silence, absolute, complete. The kind of silence that comes after judgment. I lifted my head slowly. The cabin had held, barely. Snow piled 6 feet against the north wall, the door buried completely. But the roof hadn't collapsed. The walls hadn't buckled. We were alive. I dug us out through the window, kicking through the drift, emerged into a transformed world. The slope where Clyde's men had positioned was gone, buried under 15 feet of fresh snow, smooth as a shroud. No movement, no sound except wind carrying ice crystals like diamond dust. Marshal Oswin sat his horse at the tree line. He'd been riding in when it happened. His face was pale as the snow. Behind him, Elwood and 6 other townspeople, all mounted, all frozen in shock. Clyde's torch stuck out of the white burial 20 yards off. His hand still gripped it, fingers locked in death. The rest of him was underneath. Jesus Christ, Oswin whispered. I helped Nashota out through the window. She looked at the white grave, at the marshal, at the torch, said nothing. Her face was carved from stone. 2 of Clyde's men had survived, the lookout on the ridge and one who'd stayed furthest back. They stumbled out of the trees, looked at the buried crew, and ran. Didn't stop, didn't look back, just ran toward the pass like hell itself chased them. Nobody tried to stop them. Oswin dismounted slow, like moving through deep water. I came to help. His voice was hollow. My daughter, she shamed me into it. Thought I'd find a battle. He gestured at the buried men, the torch, the hand. Found judgment instead. By noon, half the town had gathered. Word spread fast, avalanche at Colburn's place, men buried. When they saw the destruction, bullet-riddled cabin, burned shed, the white grave with Clyde's torch sticking out, silence fell like a weight. Elwood pushed through the crowd with Beatrice on his shoulders. The girl's eyes were wide, but determined, old beyond her 9 years. She has something to say, Elwood announced, his voice carried, and you're all going to listen. He set her down. Beatrice walked to the center, small but fierce, faced the crowd, the marshal, everyone. I was here last night, she said. Her voice was clear, steady. I followed Papa because I wanted to make sure Miss Nashota was okay after she saved me. Murmurs from the adults. Oswin stepped forward. Child, you shouldn't have... I heard everything. She cut him off. The man with the torch, Mr. Mercer, he said she was inventory. He said his buyer was waiting and paid good money. He said she'd come to him, walking or bleeding, and he didn't care which. She looked around at the adults, at their shocked faces. He said they'd burn the cabin. Then his man shot first. I saw it. Dead silence. She saved my life, Beatrice continued. Her voice broke, but didn't stop. And those men tried to kill her for it. Tried to kill Mr. Colburn, too. That's not right. That's not... She struggled for the words. That's not what we're supposed to be. Elwood knelt beside his daughter, arm around her shoulders. He looked at Oswin. There's your witness, Marshal. 9 years old and braver than any of us. Oswin stared at Beatrice, then at the buried snow, then at Nashota standing beside me, wrapped in a blanket, face impassive. Something in him crumbled, years of rigid certainty collapsing like the cornice. The federal warrant, he said slowly, was in my saddlebag. Saddlebag was on my horse when the avalanche hit. Horse spooked, ran, saddlebag came loose. He met my eyes. He met my... Lost in the snow somewhere. Might take weeks to dig out. Might be lost forever. Understanding rippled through the crowd. Can't enforce a warrant I don't have, Oswin continued. And the territory court contract. He gestured at the buried torch. Mercer's dead. Contract dies with him. No one left to enforce it. He turned to Nashota. You're free. Legally, you're... He struggled with the words. You're a free woman. Nashota swayed. I caught her arm, steadied her. Her breathing had gone rapid, shallow. However, Oswin said, for your protection, I'm placing you under federal custody. Protective custody. He looked at me. In the care of Silas Colburn, who I'm deputizing as territorial agent. Temporarily. Until this gets sorted proper. He was giving us legal cover, making her untouchable. Elwood grinned. Well, hell, Marshal. That's downright humane of you. Oswin looked past the crowd. His daughter Kimamela stood at the edge, watching. He held out his hand to her. She came forward slow, took it, started crying. He pulled her into an embrace, and the crowd pretended not to watch. Widow Hess thumped her cane. About damn time some justice got done around here. Agreements all around. The crowd began to disperse, but not before several came forward. Shook my hand, nodded to Nashota with respect. Widow Hess even touched Nashota's shoulder, said, You're a brave girl. When they'd gone, only Elwood and Beatrice remained. Thank you, Elwood said simply. Beatrice walked up to Nashota, looked up at her. Can I visit you? Learn more beadwork? Nashota knelt, eye level with the child, smiled, full and genuine. Yes, you... come. Anytime. Beatrice hugged her. Nashota froze for a second, then wrapped her arms around the girl, closed her eyes. After they left, we stood in the yard. The sun was out now, bright and warm for the first time in weeks. Meltwater dripped from the cabin roof. Spring's first promise. It's over, I said. Nashota looked at the buried snow, at the torch still sticking up. They come back? No, they won't come back. She turned to me. You sure? I'm sure. I took her hand. You're free. Really free. She looked at our joined hands. At the cabin behind us, bullet-scarred but standing. At the town in the distance. At the mountains. At the valley opening up in spring light. Free, she repeated, testing the word. Then she smiled. We free. Yeah, I said. We are. May came soft. Snow receded day by day, revealing brown grass that turned green almost as you watched. The creek ran high with meltwater, the same creek where I'd found her 3 months ago, half dead and frozen. The town had helped rebuild, new shutters courtesy of the Johnsons, patched roof, old man Garrett doing the work himself, even a proper door with real hinges installed by Elwood's boys. The bullet holes stayed. I'd wanted to fill them, but Nashota said no. "Remember," she'd said. "Show what we survive." So they stayed. 23 pockmarks in the wood, testament to the night Clyde Mercer learned mountains don't negotiate. The garden Nashota planted was thriving, beans climbing stakes, early lettuce bright and green, potato plants spreading their leaves. She worked it daily, hands in warm soil, humming songs her mother had taught her. I watched from the porch, mending tack that didn't need mending, just wanting to watch her. Different kind of routine now, better kind. "Silas," she straightened, one hand on her lower back. "Come." I set down the leather, walked to her. She took my hand, placed it on her belly, held it there firm, eyes searching mine. I felt it, slight but unmistakable. Movement. "Baby," she said. "Ours." The world tilted. I looked at her. Dark hair loose and shining in sunlight. Face fuller now that hunger was gone. Smile cautious but bright with hope. Marjorie's ghost stood beside her for one heartbeat. Smiled, faded like morning mist. "Ours," I repeated. She nodded. "You... happy?" I pulled her close, kissed her forehead, her cheeks, her lips, tasted earth and sun and living. Yeah, I'm happy." That afternoon I walked to the cottonwood tree alone. Marjorie's markers stood weathered but straight, carved letters still legible. Marjorie Ann Colburn, beloved wife, 1849 to 1873. Below that, smaller, an infant son, name unknown. I knelt, took off the leather cord I'd worn for 6 years. The ring, her ring, caught the sunlight, gold band worn thin from her wearing it, from my carrying it. "I loved you," I said to the earth, to the bones beneath. "Still do, always will." My throat closed. "But I'm loving again, and I think you'd want that." I buried the ring at the base of the marker, covered it with fresh soil, pressed it down with my palm. "Thank you, for the years we had, for teaching me what it meant to love someone, for..." I stopped, started again. "For letting me go." When I stood, Nashota waited at the clearing's edge. She'd given me privacy but came to witness. I held out my hand, she took it. We walked back to the cabin together, her other hand on her belly where new life grew. The new lamp, Nashota made it from tin scraps and deer hide, different design but her own, burned in the window that night. Different from Marjorie's, but just as warm. The light steady and golden. The frost patterns were gone now. Spring warmth had erased them, but I remembered how they'd looked. 2 handprints overlapping where we'd stood together that last frozen night, waiting for dawn and death. We'd gotten dawn, and life instead. Oswin came by once a month now, official visits that became friendly. His daughter Kimimela lived nearby with her husband and 2 children. They were rebuilding slow but steady. He'd held his grandson for the first time last week, cried. Elwood's family joined us for Sunday meals. Beatrice called Nashota Auntie, which made her tear up every single time. The girl was teaching her to write better English. Nashota was teaching her medicine, plant names, how to identify healing herbs. The town had changed. Or maybe I'd changed. Either way, we belonged now. Nashota walked the streets without fear. People nodded, spoke to her, asked her advice on ailments. She was becoming what she'd always been meant to be, medicine woman, healer. That summer, when her belly was round and full and impossible to hide, we stood before the preacher. He married us under the cottonwood tree, Marjorie's grave at our backs. "Witnesses to the past," he said, "blessings for the future." The whole town came, even Oswin, standing with his daughter and grandson. Our son was born in October during the first snow. Strong-lunged and stubborn, with dark hair and my gray eyes, we named him Samuel, after my father. 2 years later, a daughter, Marjorie Nashota. The names together felt right, honoring what was, embracing what is. 28 winters since that February when I found her dying by my creek. 28 years of waking to see her face on the pillow beside mine, of watching frost patterns form and melt on the windows, of knowing I got it right the second time. People ask what made me risk everything. My life, my land, my freedom, for a stranger. Truth is, she stopped being a stranger the moment I chose to dig her out of that snow. After that, she was mine to protect. Simple as that. The law said she was property, the mountain said different. And I reckon the mountain had the final word that day. That avalanche buried more than Clyde Mercer and his men. It buried the idea that some people are worth less than others, that a piece of paper matters more than a beating heart. Our children are grown now. Samuel works the ranch with me, strong as an ox and twice as stubborn. Marjorie married a good man from town, half Apache, half Irish, all decent. They gave us 3 grandchildren who play in that same creek where I found their grandmother, where death almost claimed her. The new lamp still burns every night. Different lamp, same purpose, keeping light in the dark when the world goes cold. Sometimes, late at night, I trace patterns on the window glass and think about the choices that brought me here. Could have left her in the snow, could have handed her over when the marshal came, could have walked away a dozen times, but I didn't. Because some debts aren't paid with money or blood, they're paid with presence. With standing your ground when the world says run. With looking at another soul and saying, you matter, you stay. Winter don't lie, mountains don't forget, and neither do I. She mattered, she stayed, and that made all the difference.